Hello, my amazing people. It's Mr. Cameron Sipine again. On today's episode of this podcast, we'll talk about relationships. I know relationships are quite very sensitive, and these are subjects as young people that we need to meddle them with a lot of, prudence, knowing how we go about it. Now, the big question is, what area of relationship should we talk about as young people? Is it about dating? Is it about courtship or marriage or relationships in our careers or how the families we grew up from? Relationships are in many sense, but on today's episode, I'll take my time to touch on any and every area of different forms of relationships and how they affect us holistically as young African people. Once again, it's Calvin Supreme, the dreamer, and I dare you to dream. Okay, we'll just get straight into it. Let's talk about parent to child relationship. I think we should start with that because that's the fundamental of how we view the world. The quality of love that we receive as children when we enter into this world has a very huge impact it plays on our adulthood as we get older and on our parenting when we become parents ourselves. So, how did we grow up? I think it's very important for us young African people, to have some time in our quiet moments and analyze the relationships that we grew up with. For some people, they were fortunate enough to have good parents that they grew up with. For others, they grew up with grandparents, uncles, aunties. And how did these people model life? What are the set of values that they implanted on us as young as we are? Now, let's fast forward and look at our adulthood. How have these relationships in our life, in our formative days, shaped us? How has it affected our temperament, our personality? How do we value ourselves? How do we carry ourselves around? What's that imprint of our self-esteem? How do we see the world? For some, we go through life in our adulthood quite quiet. We feel like we don't matter. We feel like our opinions don't count. Our voice cannot be heard. Why? Because when we trace back the people who brought us, who carved those early days of our life, probably they didn't show us love. For some of us adults, we are so confident about who we are. We identify our personalities, even as far as our sexuality, because we had people who told us we can become anything we dare to dream about. Me being the big dreamer with I want to bring us to that place where we look back at our relationships, we analyze them, pick out the good aspect of those relationships, and pick out the bad aspect as well. So we become intentional as not to transfer them. We had people who grew up where they had nothing but insults coming from the ones they grew up with. You are a good for nothing child, you never amount to anything, you be by luck picking. I don't know why God for bring you for the life. You way you no get sense, you door. Some of us grew up hearing those words day in and day out. And those words have hugely carved and shaped out our destinies. But I encourage us today to take the responsibility to work on ourselves if we come from that area. And to equally encourage those who come from areas where they had all the love in the world, they could set them on a high global stage standard. They implanted a seed of belief in themselves, a seed of standing for their set of values, standing for something so they don't fall for anything. To encourage the people around them and to encourage all us that as at this stage of our adulthood as young Africans, we should stay glued to those values that we had coming back from those backgrounds. And for the parents, it is very important we become very mindful of the verbal proclamations we give to the young people around us. Because that child we say is good for nothing, that could just have been the next president that God has given into our hands as parents to mold them, to be as stewards, to guide them through that part of life. It's important that we watch the things we say and we even do around our children. I go to some homes and you find 5 years, 7 years, the TV is on. They're the one narrating the film that's going on. Oh no, that no, he come for that antenna. Then he come meet up in your room, so they will join the kiss, then we hug. And I'm like, do these parents even know the defect that such visual programming has on the minds and development of these young people? Because coming from a cinematographic background, when movies go on the cinema, you hear this movie is rated PG-16, PG-18, PG-21, PG-13. Parental guidance is advised, but you will find a young man below age 5, below age 7, watching a film meant for adults or probably teenagers. You find a teenager watching films that are meant for adults. And what we think is that's an enabling environment for that young people. No. I think that we too as parents need to be very cautious, as elder brothers, elder siblings, as uncles and aunties, to be very mindful of what we expose the young people to, because these young people, as they age and become adults, all these imprints become visible and expressive into their lives. Okay, now let's look at next set of relationships. Now, as children, we grow old, we become teenagers, we become young adults. We feel these hormonal changes inside our bodies. We start longing for attraction from the opposite sex. We keep girlfriends, we keep boyfriends, we keep very close friends. And this too is another very important form of relationship. You are a young man or a young woman, at your very early adulthood, you've done some funny things and you're not willing to live with the repercussion of those things. What do you expect? This relationship shapes our perspective of how we view others, of how we have self-love. You are a young woman, you are in a very abusive relationship. You have a boyfriend who all what he knows how to do best is to harass you, molest you, violate you. And you go in that very formative young adulthood, you start looking at the relationship from that dimension, thinking that, no, he beat me because he liked me. Come on. You see, those are seeds of abusive standpoint about relationship that we grow into them in marriage. Young African people should not be into relationships where it's not clearly defined, because it affects every area of our lives. Our relationship life affects our career life. It affects how well we do in our workplaces, our businesses, the amount of money we can accumulate, the places we can go into the world, our self-esteem, our self-projection into the world, the height to which we can hit, how ambitious we can get, how we can summon the tenacity to go after our dreams based on the relationships that we keep. We are just so used to just finding ourselves entangled with anybody that makes advances at us, because we have that longing to be loved by someone. Why? Because we are suffering from lack of self-love. It's important to go down the road and ask yourself, how do I feel loved? Understand yourself. How do I give out love? For some, they feel loved by quality time. For some, by verbal proclamations. For others, touch. No need going down the 5 love languages. But it is important that we understand how we feel love, so it acts as a guideline and a roadmap for the ones we bring into our lives in love relationships. You will see a young girl with a very promising future, doing so well academically, gets, with one funny young man, and the next thing, she starts living from first 3 positions and is now number 30-something in the class. Just start losing sense of self, losing sense of direction, no focus with their life. And as it accumulates and compounds over the years, they start losing hope about life. A young man will be, you have a girlfriend, she puts you under immense pressure. Oh, I want to use iPhone. What's even the latest version of iPhone? I want to use iPhone, so and so. Now, you are a young man who has not been able to care for your own self as an individual, and now because you have a girlfriend who you need to prove your manliness to, you are compelled to go extra miles so that you can pull together the necessary resources to satisfy the needs. Should I even call it the needs? The wants of this girl you keep in your life. And you realize that you start building habit of taking from where you didn't keep. You start, telling lies, making unnecessary demands financially so you can amass these funds and satisfy the need of this young person. So a boy to a girl relationship, it's very important to assess. We have young people who stay in relationship 5, 10 for the older adults, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and the relationship seems not to be going anywhere. We don't set clear goals with the relationship, and as a result, we don't even have any yardstick for measurement to say, okay, look, we have been this far. Let's have this deep conversation. Where are we going to? And at the end of the day, the boy leaves the girl or the girl leaves the boy. And now this have been years on years invested into a relationship that was not going anywhere. We read and hear of young men who even commit murder because they feel betrayed. People who are sick in the head. And now when they combine with another sick person, what is the result? But these are young people that their parents have a lot of expectations from them. Some parents, we as the young people or their children, are their hope. The African proverb that says children are our walking stick when we are older. So a parent will do a lot of sacrifices for us, the young people. And when we grow old, they have invested in us educationally, invested in us financially, invested in us by time, try to shape our life with certain values that will act as compasses to navigate us through life. But now, because we come across one funny individual, one funny young man or young woman who comes from very unpleasant background, we just become a time bomb over time. Why? Because we don't analyze our relationships. Some of us come from very abusive homes where all we saw was our parents hitting on each other. So we define that as the measurement of love, of family unit. So it's important that even as we live as children and we become adults, the relationship, the quality of the people we bring into our lives is very important. You can have issues with friends, 1, 2 days, you work them out. But the ones we have given our hearts to, we easily get broken down. You hear a young girl at 18 saying, oh boy, then I cheat. Oh boy, then I scam. Oh, love is scam. At 18, why? Because she has had episodes of heartbreaks. At 18, you should be able to be finding yourself on the path of destiny. You should be able to ask some hardcore question of what is my life unfolding into? What are my set of goals and objectives? How do I find myself? What are my likes? What are my dislikes? How do I sponsor myself into glorious destiny and a greater fulfillment in the future? At 18, we should be able to, as a young person, ask which institution can I work so hard to get into where I will come out and I will emerge victorious. But it's funny enough that we, the young Africans, we find ourselves at our early adulthood, we have kept so many random relationships very undefined. And it has taken a bigger portion of our self-dignity, a huge portion of our self-belief. It has tarnished the image of self. And we start having cracks for our future. What we would think such youth will amount to? Mediocrity, complacence. Because a belief of self has been punctured by a young man who grew in an environment where all he knows is violence. And this is how our destinies keep being shaped day after day as we keep these relationships.